Today is our seventh weekend, and our topic on this seventh weekend is quantum emotional and quantum cognition theories or therapies. And today is our 13th class in quantum psychotherapy. And our topic for this class is quantum emotional processes, principles, and quantum psychology in developing emotional intelligence. So quantum emotional processes refer to those human emotions that don't behave like on and off switches, but like quantum subatomic particles, fluid, interconnected, existing in multiple states at once until we observe them, and then they change and connect instantaneously across distances. So quantum emotional processes are energetic, interconnected, and nonlinear experiences. And we are going to go through these quantum emotional processes that you might have felt at one time, but could not know or make anything out of it. So have you ever felt a blend of intense joy when you are promoted at the workplace, and then at the same time, you feel that deep anxiety about the new responsibilities that are coming to you? This is emotional superposition, simultaneous, contradictory feelings, feeling joy and anxiety at the same time. Or you might be a mother, and at one time you might have sensed that your child who was miles away was in some particular distress. Or you could have felt that between you and a colleague, there was some kind of limbic resonance where two people, you and the other person, your nervous systems were synchronized during an empathetic connection. And both of you felt the same thing at the same time. Or a group or family might share a collective, heavy emotional tone where one person's anger immediately impacts the mood of everyone in the room, or everyone in the class, or everyone in a group, either in a workshop or a retreat. And this is emotional entanglement, which is instantaneous connection. Or you could have felt a vague state that is not bad, but suddenly you felt intense grief upon seeing a photograph of a deceased loved one. Or are there those times when you cognitively reframed and shifted fear into a state of calm simply by consciously changing your perspective on a situation? This too will pass, shifts fear into calmness. Or are there those times when you have suppressed anger and denied observing that anger and it intensified? And then those other times when you acknowledged the anger and allowed it to transform, it dissipated? Or could there be those times when a feeling of panic diminished when you observed it rather than simply reacting to it? This is the observer effect, shifting feelings through focus. And there could also have been those times when you felt a sudden aha moment of insight that shifted you from a state of frustration and confusion to profound clarity and joy instantaneously, moving you into a different place altogether. And there could also be those times when you instantaneously shifted from a neutral mode to that of nostalgia upon hearing an old song play on the radio. Or you could have instantaneously moved from an old held belief of unworthiness. I'll never succeed. Nothing good comes to me. And then all of a sudden, a feeling of self-efficacy and confidence was experienced, or a moment of breakthrough where intense sadness suddenly shifted to acceptance when you had lost something or lost someone. These are examples of quantum jumps or sudden emotional breakthroughs. And there could be also those times when you felt light and energized and elated, but at the same time, you also felt heaviness or slowness or being stuck when experiencing depression or shame. These are vibrational frequency or energetic states that change. And there could have been those times when you had those gut feelings or intuitive knowing that a specific event was occurring, and this was later verified to you. This is non-local connectivity and intuition. And there could be those times when you chose to forgive someone, thus shifting from a state of anger and resentment to one of peace. And the wave of anger and the wave of potential recreation collapsed into the reality of peace. This is wave function collapse, making a decisive choice. But before the decision was made, multiple emotional features were possible. Forgiveness or anger and resentment. And there could also have been those times when you were thinking deeply about a long lost friend and instantaneously you received a call from them. This is synchronicity or meaningful coincidences. So what we have shared above so far is confirmation of quantum emotional theory that states that emotions exist in multiple potential states simultaneously and only settle into a specific felt experience through conscious awareness or decision making. When you are given a promotion and you are feeling joy and anxiety at the same time, you can choose to feel that joy because you are a quantum self experiencing quantum emotions. And the quantum self is pioneered by Dana Zohar, who suggests that the self is a dynamic process, not fixed. And the quantum emotional theory is a holistic model where emotions originate from the subatomic wellspring in the quantum field, and it replaces the mechanistic view of the mind, the classical or Newtonian psychology that treats the brain like a biological machine where mental states can be understood by breaking them down into their smallest physical components. And with this classical Newtonian psychology, emotions are seen as predictable outputs, suggesting that if you change the input or fix the broken part, you can precisely control the emotional result. And this is the cause and effect of Newtonian classical psychology. But when we get into the quantum emotional theory, feelings are energetic, vibrational frequencies that can be managed by conscious focus and observation and shifting our emotional states. And this is the core operating system of the quantum emotional model. Our body is less of a machine and more of a highly sensitive radio. If we view feelings and emotions as data carrying frequencies rather than permanent traits, we shift from being a victim of our mood to being the tuner of our experience. So, are you ready to shift from being a victim of your mood to being the tuner of your own experience. So let's examine the role of non-local emotional connection in family systems therapy. In quantum family systems, the family is viewed not just as a social group, but as a non-locally entangled field. And today I'm using an example of a family system because most of us, from where we come from, we are either living in congregations or in communities, or we are developmental workers who will be meeting our target groups. And during that time when we are with our target groups or with our parishioners, we are like a family. So we are examining the role of non-local emotional connection in such a family systems therapy. So in quantum family systems, the family or a group or a community or a congregation is viewed not just as a social group, but a non-locally entangled field. And the emotional state of one member can instantaneously affect other members, regardless of physical distance or even conscious communication. And this emotional entanglement suggests that family members, congregational members, group members remain linked across space and time. And in therapy, this explains why a child or a novice or a parishioner might act out suppressed anxiety of a parent, of a priest, of a superior, or why one sibling may feel a sudden heaviness when another is in crisis miles away. So drawing from the work of Rupert Sheldrake, family systems are often described as having a morphic field, a collective memory and energetic blueprint. And this morphic field holds all the rules, all the secrets, and all the traumas of the lineage, influencing members, even if they are unaware of the family history or the group history or the congregation history. So families, groups, and communities often exhibit synchronicity, non-local resonance. And multiple community members, congregational members, or family members may experience similar health issues or life milestones at the same time, despite being separated. And this is seen as a resonance within the shared quantum field rather than mere coincidence. And because the field is non-local in time and it is intergenerational, healing trauma in the present can ripple backward and forward. So when one member shifts their frequency, resolving a conflict, the emotional burden on others in the group, others in the family, others in the school, others in the church gathering, others in the family, is spontaneously alleviated. So in quantum systems, the person showing symptoms, e.g., that identified patient is often just the node where the system entangled stress is most visible. And therapy focuses on shifting the entire field's vibration rather than fixing the individual. And when a family member, a congregation member, a community member, or a church member begins consciously frequency management, they stop being a passive reactor to the family's entangled drama or community's entangled drama or congregation's entangled drama. And by maintaining their own quantum coherence, that member can act as a stabilizing force that non-locally influences the rest of the system towards balance and harmony. And emotional tuning is the key to managing these frequencies, to know how conscious focus acts as the dial. The law of resonance states that high frequency emotions like appreciation and low frequency emotions like resentment cannot occupy the same space simultaneously. So by consciously focusing on a high frequency thought, you override the lower vibrational thought through resonance. And your brain sends an electrical signal, the thought, which triggers a chemical release or emotion. And this emotion then reinforces the thought. And conscious focus is the only tool that can break this loop by introducing a new input signal, by introducing a new positive thought. So it's not just about what you feel, but it is about the intensity of the focus. A weak thought of gratitude won't shift a heavy state of grief. So you have to amplify your new frequency of gratitude through sensory observation and visualization and feeling the emotion of gratitude in your chest, not just thinking about it in your head. So how do we shift the state? And according to Nikola Tesla, he says that if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And these vibrations physically affect our cellular biology, epigenetics. And if you find yourself vibrating at a frequency that feels heavy or restrictive, you can use these 3 steps to shift your quantum field. First and foremost, acknowledge. Don't fight the low frequency emotion of fear. Observe it without judgment. And you can say to yourself, I notice I'm feeling contracted. And this acknowledging prevents you from becoming entangled with the emotion. So you acknowledge it as you observe it so that you don't entangle with it. The next thing you can do is to interrupt the pattern, breaking the pattern. So you can use a physical shift like deep breathing or movement or a sudden change of environment to break the energetic momentum. When you're feeling very sad, change the environment. Break the pattern of sadness to shift it into something more positive. When you get into nature and you see the trees and you see the birds flying in the trees, do you remain in that sadness? And the third thing you can do is to choose a bridge emotion. If you are in great despair, don't try to jump straight to joy. The frequency gap is too wide. Aim for courage or neutrality first, then work your way up slowly until you reach to the state of joy. Let's now look at psychology and quantum emotional process principles, a foundation for quantum psychotherapy. Quantum psychotherapy integrates classical psychological foundations that we've all studied with quantum mechanics to treat the human mind as a probabilistic and energetic system. And the quantum emotional process approach moves beyond the mechanical view of the brain, suggesting that emotional health is achieved through the fluid management of consciousness and energetic states. So traditional psychology concepts are recontextualized within a quantum field of experience. And health can be achieved through psychological foundations of quantum therapy, where the brain is modeled and viewed as two subsystems. The unconscious is seen as the quantum system, and the conscious part of our mind is seen as the observer. And the unconscious states hold all those emotional potentialities that only become definite experiences when our consciousness observes them. And drawing from Jungian psychology, quantum models view the ego's journey of the self as a process towards a state of wholeness, mirroring the unity found in quantum fields. And while classical psychology often sees emotions as predictable reactions to stimuli, quantum models treat them as nonlinear, spontaneous experiences. You might be going through some event where people might expect you to react with anger, but then you choose to react with understanding. So health can be achieved when quantum psychotherapy redefines emotional processing through principles like the emotional field hypothesis. And this proposes that emotions behave like quantum fields and are probabilistic rather than discrete and self-contained units. So no matter what is going on around you, you can choose an emotional state from the quantum possibilities that will give you a blissful experience. And there is that principle of complementarity supported by Dan Siegel, and it suggests that contradictory states, e.g. life and death or health and illness, have to coexist. And in therapy, this helps a patient accept the uncertainty of life rather than trying to rigidly control life. Another principle of emotional resilience via superposition. Resilient individuals stay in psychological superposition, holding multiple perspectives, holding grief and gratitude simultaneously to adapt to the situational demands of any event or situation they are facing. And we can restore energetic equilibrium by therapeutic shift from fixing to flow. releasing stuck energy. Trauma is seen as an emotional baggage, as denied feelings remaining buried in the unconscious. And therapy explores and integrates underlying feelings to release conditioned patterns. And intentional focus is needed because thoughts and emotions emit frequencies, and intentional observation can shift an individual from being a victim of their circumstances to being a quantum facilitator of their own healing. And we also need mind and body techniques to restore our energetic equilibrium. So practicing grounding, breath work, and visualization can be used to re-establish balance within the body's energetic system. And this is where quantum psychotherapy bridges classical psychology that we have studied with quantum principles to treat the mind, seeing emotional states as fluid, probabilistic energy fields rather than fixed deterministic traits, and viewing reality as a construct influenced by perception and encouraging shifts in perspective and behavior. And this shifts the therapeutic focus from analyzing fixed past causes to managing potential future states. So let us look at the foundational principles of quantum psychotherapy. And the first one is emotional superposition. And it goes like this. Mental and emotional states can exist as multiple potentialities, both joy and grief. You can experience both joy and grief. And one can hold multiple conflicting beliefs or states of being simultaneously until an observation, until a focus, until a conscious choice collapses them into a single experienced reality. So when you are holding both joy and grief, will you choose to observe grief or will you choose to observe joy? And this can be used in therapy to help individuals explore the different perspectives available without immediately having to make a choice until a time when they are sure of what they want to experience. Another foundational principle of quantum psychotherapy is relational entanglement. And this principle says that individuals are non-locally connected. You are non-locally connected to your teacher. You are non-locally connected to your child. You are non-locally connected to your spouse or congregation member, especially those with close emotional bonds. And this relational entanglement provides a framework for understanding empathy, shared emotional experiences, and how a therapist's state can directly influence a client's field. And this is interconnectedness between different aspects of a person's experience, such as their thoughts, their emotions, and physical health. And this principle suggests and supports a holistic approach that recognizes how a change in one area can instantly affect changes in another area. For example, if I change how I think, it might change the emotion I will feel, and it might change the physical health of my cells. Another concept or another principle in quantum psychotherapy is the observer effect in awareness. Remember that the act of consciously observing an emotion and witnessing it without judgment changes the state of that emotion. So mindfulness acts as an observer that shifts an energetic pattern from stuck to fluid, shifting resentment into forgiveness or anger into calmness. Another principle is the uncertainty principle and potentiality. Embracing the uncertainty principle helps clients move away from the rigidity of needing to control outcomes. And healing is seen as an exploration of infinite possibilities rather than a quest for a single correct answer. So once aspects of mental or emotional states can't be known with complete certainty, psychotherapy can use this to help individuals embrace and navigate the unpredictability of their life. Quantum tunneling is another principle. Unlike classical models, where healing is a linear step-by-step process, quantum change often involves sudden, non-linear breakthroughs, and these leaps in consciousness allow a person to bypass traditional cognitive barriers. Let us look at applications in practice of quantum emotional processes. And they can be used in reframing reality. And by using principles like superposition, individuals can learn to consciously choose which realities to manifest through focused intentional belief. I can do it. I can be successful. With all that said, we are now ready. As we get towards the end of our presentations, we are ready to see the role of quantum psychology and quantum psychotherapy in understanding and developing emotional intelligence. And quantum psychology and quantum psychotherapy, they view emotions as probabilistic non-linear states that can exist in superposition until a conscious measurement happens, which can help in understanding and developing our emotional intelligence. Let's start with reframing and experiencing the change of reframing our experiences of uncertainty and emotional states. This is the first pillar of emotional intelligence. If we can reframe experiences of uncertainty and emotional states, multiple emotions can exist at once. One might feel both excitement and anxiety before an event. When applied to emotional intelligence, this reframes these mixed feelings as a single fluid state rather than conflicting emotions, allowing for greater acceptance and a less judgmental view of one's feelings. When I stop judging that resentment and that bitterness, and I am looking at the excitement, at the joy of being in a relationship free of bitterness and free of resentment. This is where emotional intelligence develops from. Consciousness shapes reality. By observing emotional states without judging, we can better manage them and foster interconnectedness and embrace their complexity. And this is where the role of consciousness comes in. And the theory proposes that consciousness plays an active role in determining our emotional reality. And the act of observing and becoming aware of an emotion collapses it into a specific state. Collapsing resentment and bitterness into understanding my partner. And this highlights the power of self-awareness in emotional intelligence and provides a framework for intentionally cultivating the desired emotional responses. And when we are looking at entanglement and interconnectedness, quantum entanglement suggests a deep, non-local connection between individuals. And this can be applied to emotional intelligence as the way to understand empathy and social awareness, seeing how emotions are interconnected and how one person's emotional state can be influenced by another's, fostering a deep connection and empathy. Are we ready to grow our emotional intelligence? When we apply quantum psychotherapy to emotional intelligence, there are 5 pillars of emotional intelligence seen as a series of energetic interruptions. And the first one is quantum self-awareness. The second is quantum self-regulation. The third is quantum motivation. And the fourth is quantum empathy. And the fifth is quantum skills. So as we end this presentation, let's look briefly at what each of the 5 pillars entails. Quantum self-awareness is knowing that everything is energy. And quantum self-awareness is the recognition that emotions are not just abstract feelings, but specific energetic frequencies. When we are able to realize that, we are on our way of developing quantum emotional intelligence. And we are viewed as a musical instrument resonating at different frequencies. High frequency states of joy and love promote well-being, while low frequency states of fear and guilt lead to distress. So we can practice periodically pausing and identifying our current vibrational state. What current vibrational state have you been holding since morning? It's not just about labeling the emotion, but acknowledging it and then tuning your internal tuning fork to generate it into another high vibrating emotional frequency. That is quantum self-awareness, the first pillar. The second pillar is quantum self-regulation. And this means shifting our emotional states. If particles can shift from one state to another when energy is added, that means that our quantum emotional intelligence applies this to the neuroplasticity, the ability of our brain to change. And this requires intentionality. By recognizing that emotions are energy in motion, We can use intentional focus to shift our internal state rather than being a victim of it. If resentment keeps coming, am I shifting it to forgiveness? Am I shifting it into gratitude? And the third pillar of emotional intelligence is quantum motivation. And this uses the observer effect. And quantum motivation utilizes the observer effect, where the act of focused observation collapses the field of possibilities into a single reality. And you can always ask yourself every morning, what reality do I choose to observe today? What reality do I choose to create today? And this helps you to direct your energy to a particular focus, and that is quantum motivation. And the fourth pillar is quantum empathy, that non-local entanglement. And quantum empathy is described as a limbic resonance, mirroring the concept of entanglement, where two particles become linked and the change in one affects the change in the other particle. So in my relationships, in my work, where I live in a family or a congregation or a community, am I willing to practice that quantum empathy and know that a change in my own inner state can change the state of the other congregation members or other community members or other family members? And the last pillar is social skills. And quantum intelligence sees social skills as the ability to manage the collective emotional field that exists as a morphic field, either in family members or in congregational members or in community members or in church members. And this social resonance means that positive emotions can infect those around us, creating an upward spiral that benefits the entire social work, the entire social network of a family, the entire social network of a congregation, the entire social network of a community, or the entire social network of a church. And when we have harnessed all these 5 pillars of quantum intelligence, this is where quantum leadership comes in. And leaders with high quantum intelligence use their own coherence to stabilize and influence the energy of every other team member in a family, in a congregation, in a community, or in a classroom. And we'll be looking deeply at quantum leadership in other classes that we'll be attending. So the question I'm leaving with you today: how will you use your quantum emotional principles to work with clients, to work with families, with groups, with communities, and with congregations? Have a beautiful evening. Thank you for listening. Be blessed.